Gazed up at the dark shape of the man above me. My eyes had grown used to the gloom by now, and I could make out his classical Greek profile, his strong arms and his dark, sea-colored eyes. And that would be bad because... There was a pause. Mr. Linton. Yes, sir. I order you to focus. Yes, sir. We must leave this crate before the ship leaves the harbor. Yes, sir, as you say, sir. It was in this moment that the ship shuddered, and we heard the steam engine start with a deep, menacing rumble. Slowly, very slowly, the ship started moving forward. Asterisk tilde asterisk tilde asterisk asterisk tilde asterisk tilde asterisk. It was as if Mr. Ambrose were a puppet, and somebody had cut his strings. The last tension that had held his panting body upright went out of him, and he collapsed on top of me, 170 pounds of solid bone and muscle slamming me back into the wood wool. His heart was hammering like a deranged woodpecker against my chest, and his weight was almost keeping me from breathing. But he wasn't too heavy. Oh no, the words too heavy would have implied I wanted him to get off me. And I didn't want that. How could I wish him farther away, now that his cheek rested against mine, and his mouth was so close, almost close enough to kiss. Except that you don't want to kiss him, right? Because you're a suffragette, and he's a chauvinist, and you would never want anything to do with him. You would, for instance, not want to lift your head the few inches that separate you and softly press your lips on his, caressing, comforting. No, I definitely didn't want to do that. I would never even think of it. Oh well, maybe I would think of it a little. Unbidden, images attacked me out of the dark, and because of the dark, I had no other images to dispel them. They were images of Mr. Ambrose and me in his office, clutched in a passionate embrace. They were images of me practically tackling him and throwing him over backwards. They were images of me wanting him, not just his stern lips, or his granite face, or his deep, dark eyes, but every part of him. Lies, all lies. That was a dream, an alcoholic fantasy, like Napoleon and the little yellow piggies, nothing more. Yet the storm of images in my head didn't want to be quieted. It expanded, roaring, and feeding on my anxiety and desperation, until it had finally reached my heart. There, it found fresh strength in the secret recesses of my soul, and turned into a hurricane which swept me along, unable to resist. My head inched up, my lips moving closer to his. Mr. Ambrose still lay heavily on me, his breathing unsteady. He didn't seem to notice my movement at all. I hesitated. What was I doing? Yes, the images in my memory seemed real enough, but could I really trust them? Mr. Ambrose had been cold as an iceberg during the entire time we were shut in here. Even when he held me in his arms, it was not for my sake, it was only to keep me from giving away our presence. Could somebody who was this cold really want me? And an even better question, supposing he wanted me, did that mean that I should want him? My feminine dignity raised her head and shook it firmly. No, he was the kind of man whom, indeed, I should never even contemplate to want. My mouth was only a hair's breadth away from his now. I could feel the gentle breeze of his breath caressing my lips. It was such an achingly pleasurable feeling. I didn't dare to move, frozen in indecision. And then, he spoke. They were just 4 words, 4 little words. But they shook the foundation of my world. I am so tired. His head slid to the side, away from mine, to come to rest on my chest. I am so tired, Mr. Linton. He didn't seem to realize, or care, on what delicate part of my body his cheek now rested. At least I hoped for his sake he hadn't realized, because if he had, I'd slap him from here to Honolulu. But any thoughts of aggression I'd had went out of me as I caught sight of his chiseled face in the half-light. He looked tired, more than tired, in fact, exhausted. There weren't any lines on his perfect face, nothing visible that spoke of exhaustion. There was only the slackness of his normally so stern, hard features. It was an instinctive decision, born of all the strange, unfamiliar emotions raging in my innermost self. I raised my arms and put them around him. He stiffened for a moment, but then relaxed into me. He did not push me away. What did that mean? Did it mean anything? My mouth felt bone dry. I licked my lips and tried desperately to think of something to say. What happens now? I asked softly. His answer was a long time coming. We stay here, shut in this crate, until we reach our destination, Mr. Linton. You're still calling me, Mr. Linton, while you have your face pressed into my pair of Cupid's kettle drums. You have a problem with reality, Mr. I know that, sir. And then? That depends on the circumstances. Could you elaborate, sir? I do not feel very communicative at present, Mr. Linton. When do you ever, sir? Adequate point, Mr. Linton. Somehow, I thought I could feel some life seeping back into him. Was it only my imagination, or was there a bit of dry humor in his voice? I had to keep talking, if only to keep myself from thinking too closely about what part of me his nose was currently pressing into. So, what will happen, sir? Either the crate is opened by a single soldier, or unarmed worker, in which case, we will overpower him and try to make our escape, or it is opened in the presence of Lord Dalgleish, in which case, we die. Oh. Bravely, of course. Certainly, sir. At least I will. You, of course, have my permission to die cowardly, Mr. Linton. The unspoken words, "You're a girl, after all," hung in the air. Suddenly, I didn't feel as much like kissing him as I had a moment ago. Withdrawing my arms from around him, I crossed them in front of my chest, shoving him away. My elbow might have grazed his cheek in the process, purely accidentally. No, thank you, I growled. I'll go for the brave option, if you don't mind, sir. His words echoed in my head. In which case, we die. In which case, we die. A shiver ran down my spine, half born of fear, half of not wanting to die, of course. No, I was shivering because I wanted something else entirely, or rather, someone. If I was going to die anyway, what was the sense in resisting? The silence expanded around the two of us, and in the stillness and the dark I felt him more strongly than ever before. If we were going to die, what was the sense in my keeping my self-esteem? My dignity. Dignity was no good to a corpse. But to spend the last few hours of my life in the arms of another human being, warm and comforting. Except that he isn't warm. He's cold as ice. He feels nothing for you. And you should not feel anything for him. You can't. Suddenly, it came. The first wave was almost imperceptible, a gentle swell that hardly moved us, cushioned as we were by the wood wall. But then came another, and another. The rocking intensified. My breath hitched, as I could feel his body press into mine, and draw back. Press down, draw back. Press down, draw back. What is that? I asked, my voice sounding strange in my own ears. The sea, he said, cool and resigned. We have left the Thames and are now out in the Channel. Blast it. I never liked that darned piece of sea. Why couldn't England be part of the continent, like every other decent European country? It was simply not fair, the tortures that were inflicted on poor people trying to cross the Channel stacked on top of each other in a small wooden crate. The motion of the waves grew ever stronger, pressing me against Mr. Ambrose with a devilish, regular rhythm. Blood thrummed in my ears, and my breathing became labored. Mr. Linton. Why yes, sir. Are you sure you do not suffer from fever? Your skin is getting hot again. And no, sir, I'm perfectly fine. Desperately, I grasped around for something to talk about, something to distract me, so I would not succumb. But there was nothing I wanted to say, or do, or know. Wait a moment, that wasn't strictly true. There was something I wanted to know. Something I wanted to know badly enough to even drive thoughts of Mr. Ambrose from my mind for a few precious moments. Mr. Ambrose, sir, my voice was unsteady. He turned his head towards me without bothering to lift it from my chest. I could feel his chin press into my soft flesh. Yes, Mr. Linton. I could feel the breath of his words on my face, smell his scent of rough soap and too much money. What had I been about to ask again? And was it really that important? I could just surrender and... No. I just wondered, sir, the center of the world. What is it? I mean, if we are going to die in any event, you can tell me, right? Silence. Silence and darkness. The only other sensation was the feeling of his closeness, omnipresent, omnipotent, omni-inconvenient. Damn him, why wouldn't he tell me, even now? What could be so important that he wouldn't divulge it even at the brink of my, and his own, destruction? Tell me. Nothing but silence. I could feel myself yielding, feel my arms snaking around him again, my lips moving closer to his. What did it matter if I betrayed my principles? What would it matter if he pushed me back, laughed at me, mocked me? At least I would get to taste his lips again. Nobody would ever know. Wrong. You would know. You would regret. Still, my lips moved ever closer to their destination. I could feel his breath on my tongue now, so close was I. Tell me, I whispered, in a last, desperate attempt to distract myself, though at this point I wasn't sure that even the long-sought mystery of the center of the world would hold me back. Please, don't people who are condemned to death usually get a last wish before they die? Well, I have one. Kiss me. No. Tell me, please, tell me what the file I'm going to die for is about. A shudder went through his still form. You want to know what the file contains? Some part of me marveled how he managed to keep his voice calm and controlled, even at such a moment as this. You want to know what the center of the world is, Mr. Linton? Fine, I'll tell you. Lessons in power. The center of the world is a canal in Africa. It took a few moments for his words to register. Had he really just said that? That couldn't have been the truth. He had to have told me a joke just now, right? Stupid question. This was Mr. Ambrose. He had been serious, absolutely serious. My hands flew up to grasp his collar, and not with the intention of kissing him. I started to shake him like a rattle. What? A canal? I have been risking my life for a bloody irrigation ditch. His hands shot up to grasp mine, and ripped them off his collar. There was the sound of tearing cloth. That uniform cost £1.10, Mr. Linton, and the tailcoat underneath was almost new. It was 10 years old, you blasted miser. 10 years old is not almost new. I tried to kick out at him, but he captured my well-aimed knee between his legs. Next I tried to butt heads, but he ducked to the side. That is a matter of opinion, Mr. Linton. I shall deduct the cost for repairing the collar from your wages. You're never going to pay me any wages, you son of a bachelor, because we'll never get out of this alive. And for what? A bleeding, stinking irrigation ditch. Mind your language, Mr. Linton. You have been warned that you will have to address me respectfully. You can take your respectful address and stuff it respectfully up your, Mr. Linton. With all my might, I shoved against him, and somehow managed to haul him to the side, slamming his back against the wall of the crate. Wood wool flew around us like snow in a blizzard. Only conditions were not cold here. Oh no, they were just about to get hot. Mr. Linton. My name is Lily. Do you hear me, Lily? Mr. Linton, I forbid you. I tried to bite him. To my credit, I must say that I only missed by inches. My teeth sank into the cloth of his precious, nearly NEW 10-year-old tailcoat and probably left a good set of teeth marks. Hopefully, they would be expensive to remove, or better yet, permanent. Mr. Linton, be rational. Rational. Don't you dare tell me to be rational. It's you who is crazy. Crazy enough to risk your life and mine on this damned adventure. And for what? For a bloody irrigation ditch. My hands were still firmly caught in his grasp. I tried to bite again, but this time caught only air between my teeth. We rolled around in the little, dark space we had, bits of wood flying all around us, and I flatter myself that I got a few good kicks in now and again. But I didn't manage to free my hands, which was a pity. You need hands for strangling someone. I'm going to kill. Do you hear me? I'm going to. Suddenly, he pushed against me with unbelievable force, and I realized that he had been holding back up to that moment. In a flash, he was on top of me again and pressing my arms down at my sides. His legs snaked around me, trapping mine, and preventing me from delivering any more kicks. He had me. I could not hope to escape from his stone-hard prison. Firstly, he said, his voice as cold as a winter solstice night, nobody made you risk your life. In fact, I seem to remember locking you up to prevent that exact possibility. I hesitated. Admittedly, he had a point there. A small, but nonetheless existent, point. Secondly, you asked for the contents of the file. It is most ill-bred behavior to try and bite my fingers off for a truthful answer. And thirdly, if you ever call the masterpiece of diplomacy and engineering which has been stolen from me an irrigation ditch again, I will deduct half your wages for stupidity. Color rose to my cheeks. Thank God it was too dark for him to see. So what exactly is this canal, if not an IRI? I remembered his threat just in time, and amended, if not what I said before. There was one more moment of silence. I waited. I could feel it in the air. He was finally going to talk. Yet when he started, it wasn't at all how I thought he would. 4 years ago, a British officer and explorer called Francis Rawdon Chesney submitted a report to Parliament. Nobody paid much attention to it at the time. The country was too busy with the death of King George and the general election. But I heard of the report and tried to get hold of it. Something which, interestingly enough, proved to be more difficult than usual with official Parliament papers. Somebody had taken very good care to suppress this particular paper, which made me only more eager to lay my hands on it. He made a pause. By now he had my full attention. I waited with rapt attention for him to resume. Finally, I managed to obtain a partial copy of the report by bribing an MP. It was a costly investment, but one that proved worth the expense. I knew that the moment I got to see the report. It detailed calculations of Mr. Chesney as to the comparative sea level of the Red Sea and the Mediterranean. You see, up until this point, the sea levels of the two oceans had been believed to differ significantly. According to Mr. Chesney's new calculations, however, this was not the case. I still couldn't see where he was going with this. Of what earthly importance could sea levels be? No pun intended. Yet I sensed that there was more to come, and sir, for once, kept my mouth shut. I sent a man out there to check the calculations, he continued. They were 100% correct. The Red Sea and the Mediterranean were on one level, yet the fools in the government hadn't seen the significance of this. And I suppose, he added coolly, neither do you. I bit my lip. Indeed, I didn't see how it could be of the slightest significance. What could it matter? The Red Sea and the Mediterranean were separated by land, so what could possibly? Land. Land that could be bridged by a canal. It all clicked into place. Clearing my throat, I said tentatively, it was of significance because a canal could be built to link the two, without the different sea levels causing a natural catastrophe. He was quiet for a moment. Mr. Linton. Yes, sir. Your intelligence is greater than that of an average British member of Parliament. Thank you, sir. Don't get too excited, though. Nowadays, this doesn't mean much. Oh, I hesitated. And why is it so important to build a canal from the Red Sea to the Mediterranean? He sighed coolly. Only slightly greater than an MP's intelligence, I see. Well, Mr. Linton, why do you think? I have no idea, sir. What, Mr. Linton, is the most potent instrument of power in our world today? Guns. I could almost feel him close his eyes in exasperation. A typical answer, and a very dangerous misconception. The most potent instrument of power in our world today, Mr. Linton, is trade. It was trade that built the British Empire, trade that lost it its American colonies. It was trade that destroyed the might of the Incas, Turks and Chinese and made Europe, and above all Britain, the master of the world. I think guns played some part in that, too. Yes, they played a part. He waved my comment away as if it were of no more importance than an annoying fly. But if not for trade, Europe would never have become inventive and rich enough to develop the gun and put it to its full use. If not for trade, great ships would not have been built, the world would not have been circumvented, the Americas not discovered, the farthest corners of the world not reached and then subjugated. Trade is what keeps Europe's power alive today, and it is what has enabled me to build my very own empire. And now imagine, in such a world, dominated by trade, what you could do if you were able to open a new trade route to the richest lands of the East which would be only half as long as the existing ones. As he spoke, I saw the map of the world from my father's old atlas appear in front of my inner eye, and I could see red lines flowing across it, marking the most important trade routes of the British Empire. I had never thought about why exactly these trade routes were shown on every map, but now, listening to Mr. Ambrose's almost passionate words, I realized, they were the empire. Without them, it would not exist. And I also realized something else. All of the trade routes to the east ran around the Cape of Good Hope, circumventing the entire continent of Africa before they reached the destination. They did not go through the Mediterranean and from there to the Red Sea, because on this far shorter journey, there was a piece of land in the way. Of course, Lily, you blockhead, how could you not have seen this sooner? Suez, I whispered, you were planning to build a canal at Suez. Again, he didn't say anything for a moment. Then, it seems that not just your intelligence is slightly above that of an average MP. Your knowledge of geography, too. Adequate thinking, Mr. Linton. Would it kill him to say, good, instead of, adequate, for once? Yes, it probably would. He'd choke on it. How much trade goes around the Cape of Good Hope every year? I inquired cautiously. He made a low, derisive noise. All the trade with China, India, Indochina, Australia, New Zealand. Practically half the world's trade. Certainly the most profitable half. And if everything had gone according to plan, all this was to be channeled through one thin lane of water. Underneath the coolness, his voice almost became passionate as he spoke. All this was going to flow through one center of the world. All this I was to hold in the palm of my hand. Can you imagine, Mr. Linton? Can you? I shook my head. I had to work hard to resist the urge to shiver. No, I cannot. That is because you have never seen a fleet of clippers or East Indiamen set sail for the Far East, or the Americas. If you had witnessed the majesty of the great white sails coming down, catching the wind, and carrying the ships off to every corner of the world, you would. Ships are my arrows, the sea my bow, the world my target. There definitely was passion in his voice now. It was a cold passion, a passion for things, not for people, but it was passion. Do you see the power of trade, Mr. Linton? The power of the ship. It makes our world what it is today. And I was going to possess the knot where all these strands of power came together. The knot that connected east to west, and made me master of all. His last words seemed to echo with significance in our little, dark space. East and west, I murmured. That's it. That's why Dalgleish took the file from you. Yes, there was resignation in Mr. Ambrose's voice, and if I was not very mistaken, grudging admiration. If I had been able to go through with my plans for that canal, I would have had him by the throat. His company may have the monopoly for trade in India, it might even rule India as if it were its own empire, it might even have its own army, but its ships still need to pass from east to west. If they cannot do this at competitive speed and cost, the company, like any other business, would collapse within a few years. If I had built the canal, all ships passing through it would have been able to deliver goods twice as fast and at half the price of any competitor. I could have decided who would get past and who wouldn't. I could have demanded any price I wanted. And you would have made Dalgleish pay a lot. No, the word was a block of frozen stone. I would have cut off my right hand before one of the cursed ships of that man ever passed into my canal. He still held my wrists firmly in his grasp as he spoke. Thus it was that I could feel his little finger twitch. What did you say? I demanded. You heard me. Yes, but you would have denied him entry, even though you could have asked any price you wanted. Yes. Even though denying him entry would mean driving him into ruin. Yes. Surely that is a little harsh. No. Oh. His little twitched again. This is business, Mr. Linton. Business is about ruining your competitors, burying them so deeply that they never get up again. And I would have buried him. Oh yes, I would. By now, his finger was tapping a staccato on my wrist. Somehow, I didn't think Lord Dalgleish was only simple business competition to Mr. Ambrose. Yet I didn't probe further into the matter. Instead, I gently slipped my hand out of his grip and took his fingers in mine. The twitching of his little finger ceased. He gave a sigh. What is the use? He muttered darkly. What sense is there in would, s and might have, s? I have played the game, and lost. There will be no center of the world, no canal at Suez, no new routes for world trade under my direction. There is no chance of getting the file back now. We can only hope, if we are lucky, to escape from this with our lives. He took a deep breath. Now listen, there is a remote chance that not too many men will be present when they open the crate. I will engage them, and it will be your job to know. I think my abrupt interruption caught him off guard. He said nothing for a moment, then demanded, no. What do you mean, no? I mean no, there still is a chance to get the file back. Think, sir, nobody knows we are here. If we could somehow manage to get out of this crate unseen. Which is extremely unlikely. If we could manage it, we could get to the file. How? Without being discovered. We still have our disguises. They got us into one of Dalglish's buildings. Why not another? There still remains the little matter of getting out of there alive. I smirked in the dark. Since when have I become the one suggesting dangerous schemes and you the pessimist to reject them? Are you frightened of a little adventure? Mr. Linton. Yes. If I had enough room to move my arm properly, I would take you by the scruff of the neck and. Yes, sir. Silence. Nothing, Mr. Linton. Just as you say, sir. Another spell of silence. When he spoke again, his voice was a curious, cold mix of tones I couldn't decipher. You are seriously suggesting that on reaching our destination, I get out of this crate unseen, manage to sneak into Lord Dalglish's secret hideout, steal the file, and then manage to flee, and that all on my own? No, not on your own, sir. After all, I am here. That makes me feel so much better. Asterisk tilde asterisk tilde asterisk asterisk tilde asterisk tilde asterisk. The sudden silence was as loud as thunder in our ears. The deep thumping noise that had been our constant companion for the last few hours had suddenly ceased. The vibrations of the ship had stilled. The sudden change woke me from the half-sleep into which I had fallen after hours and hours of waiting in the dark. The engine has been stopped, I whispered drowsily. We must have arrived. What a brilliant deduction, Mr. Linton. Instead of making a snappish reply to his sarcastic remark, I asked. Do you think we are in the harbor of this place Dalgleish mentioned? This, Isle Marbo. Isle Marbo, Mr. Linton, he corrected. That's what I said, sir. No, Mr. Linton, you pronounced it like grotesque, half-English gibberish. But I am quite certain the name is French. Isle is French for island. Oh. Yes, Mr. Linton, an island. Do you see now how getting away with the file might be a bit difficult? Well, we could steal a ship. And man it ourselves. The cold, disparaging tone of his voice told me that this was not in the realm of possibility. And I believed him. Unlike me, he had been on many ships, most of which he probably owned himself. He knew what he was talking about. Isle Marbo. The strange-sounding name reverberated in my head and made my breathing quicken. With my mind's eye, I saw a desolate, dark rock rising out of the sea towards a night sky black and grey with storm clouds. On the very top rose the ruins of an old castle, in which the infamous Lord Dalgleish ruled like the king he saw himself to be. I cleared my throat. We are really and truly outside England now. Yes, Mr. Linton. Really, truly outside England. I believe I have already told you so. Yes, we are. Why? I didn't know what to say. All my life I had dreamed of adventure, of leaving England to journey to faraway lands and see the marvels of the world. None of my dreams had included being stuck in a wooden crate with somebody like Mr. Rickard Ambrose. Still, I found myself glad that he was here. With a queasy feeling in my stomach, I thought back to the fight in the alley, to my fear of being shot down by sharpshooters at number 97. Adventures were neither as easy nor as glorious as I had imagined, and it was good to have somebody I trusted with me. Wait just a minute. Trust? Are you nuts? But I did trust him. When had that happened? When I had first met him, I didn't trust him as far as I could throw him. In fact, I was deeply suspicious of his dark business dealings and chauvinistic ways. Some part of me still was, but another part of me wanted him to put his arms around me again. Suddenly, I heard a dull thump from outside. It was repeated, and repeated again, and again, getting louder as it drew nearer. What is that? I asked. Marching feet on the metal floor, Mr. Ambrose breathed. They're coming to unload the ship. Unload the ship. But, bloody hell, I was cargo now, so that included me. I stiffened. Don't move, Mr. Linton. His voice was cold, but his breath was hot at my ear. Don't breathe. Don't even think about making a sound. No matter how much they jostle us about, we must remain absolutely still. If they hear us, we are dead. He leant even closer to my ear and hissed, understood. A shiver ran down my spine. Why yes, sir. The door to our room opened, and I heard several people enter. They bent to pick up something, and left the room again. None of them came near our crate. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Soon after, another group came, and then another, each time carrying off some of the smaller crates and sacks I had briefly seen lying about in the room. They seemed to want to make room for the big removal. In other words, us. I only hoped the big removal wouldn't include a removal from the realm of the living. Finally, the footsteps returned. All right, a gruff voice called out. Ye and Tom grab. Hold on that side, me, Jim and Ezra on this one. Sure, on the count of 3, mates. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Suddenly, the world swayed. We were lifted into the air. Bloody hell, that thing ain't no sack of feathers. What did they put in there? A block of granite. Granite. I wasn't that heavy, was I? My behind wasn't that fat. It was only generous, at most. Although, there was also Mr. Ambrose to consider, and he could be classified as block of granite in my book. Keep your darn mouth shut, came the growled reply. Don't ye know what happens to those as asks too many questions? The other man fell instantly silent. From this alone, I knew what happened to curious people in Lord Dalglish's employ. Or at least I could imagine. Groaning and moaning, but not uttering another word, the 4 men carried us out of the room, down the corridor and I knew not where. I heard the sound of waves, saw faint strips of light fall in through gaps in the wooden wall, and once fancied I heard the distant chatter of many voices. Where was I? There was no indication of where we were among the sounds, or where we were headed. Not until the scream, that is. It was faint, so faint that I might have almost imagined it. Almost. If we had been in another place, I might have taken it for a cry of joy, or the sound of an annoyed child. But I knew better. Where we were going, there were no children, and there certainly was no joy. But what was it then? I had already opened my mouth to ask, when I remembered Mr. Ambrose's warning. Silence. Absolute silence. I clamped my mouth shut again and tried to ignore the gnawing feeling of panic in my stomach. Silent. You must keep silent. And I did. Somehow, though, Mr. Ambrose managed to be twice as silent as I was. He seemed to radiate negative noise. It was a trick I decided I had to learn, if I survived this. In the distance, I heard another faint cry. I couldn't suppress the image of a dark dungeon creeping up on me. But both times, the cries had sounded like children. What kind of monster was this Lord Dalglish? What few noises there were soon receded into the distance. We were venturing away from the coast, towards the center of the island, of that much I was sure. But other than that, I knew nothing of where we were heading. There was only the rocking of the crate and the steady marching sound of the soldiers to indicate that we were moving at all. Finally, the soldiers slowed down. Halt. At the command, the soldiers stopped. I heard the jingling of keys and a creaking noise that was probably a door. It didn't sound nearly creaky and sinister enough to satisfy my idea of the rusty hinges of a dungeon door, so maybe there was still hope. All right, fellows, put it down, air. The soldiers were only too happy to comply. The crate smashed to the ground, and Mr. Ambrose nearly squashed me beneath him, pressing all the air out of my lungs. MPF. Gently, gently, the Dickens knows what's in there. Ye will, Avenue hour, yeeds on a platter if anything gets broke.